Hi everyone, Cristy with Aerybeth Sewing with you today, and I've got this really pretty fabric that I found at Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to make a simple pair of curtains for my kitchen over my sink. And the very first thing I'm going to do is, I've got the measurements, but I need to square up the bottom of this because the edges are uneven. And so I'm using the whole width of the fabric that was on the bolt. It was folded like, that on the bolt and then rolled up. So I'm using the whole width of it. I'm going to make two panels that the panels need to be, I think they were like 34 inches wide. They needed to be after hemming. And this is going to be like 40. So it's going to be just a little bit more gathered than the pair that I had up there. But that will look just fine because I like a little bit more gather. And then the top to the bottom needed to be 43 inches, I believe. And so I'm going to have a 3 or 4 inch hem for the top of it and probably a 1 inch hem for the bottom. But after I square up the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and hem the sides, and I'm just going to hem them 1/2 inch and then a 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to seam both of those. You always seam both of those first, the sides, because you need to be able to put the rod in the top, and if you do the sides last, you will seal up the hole that the rod goes through. So let's go ahead and square up the bottom. So this is the side. I went ahead and cut off the selvage because I don't like it. So I could have done this before, but I'm going to put this right on this edge because I know that the edge is even. And you can see it goes from this little bit all the way to the bigger bit. So I'm going to scoot it all the way down to that beginning of that point, and then do this side. And now I can draw a line with my chalk to see where I need to cut that off. So I'm going to get my chalk, and I'm just going to put it right on that edge and go down. And if you're not sure if it's showing up, just going to go back and forth. And you won't be holding the camera. Usually I have my camera mounted, but I have it in my sewing room, so I'm holding it this time. And once you do that line, you can pull it out and you can see where that line is. So I'm going to push this down the rest of the way. And I could have folded it in half too, but I wanted to be able to see this whole side. All right, so now I've got the rest of it. So here's the line. I'm going to finish marking this line all the way down. And now I've got this straight edge that I know is correct. I'm going to do it for this side. I'm also do it for the top. And then I'm going to get my scissors and then cut it off right on that line. So I'm just going to go right beside of it. And you can also do it with the rotary blade. I'm doing big giant alligator bites where I'm ending up right on that line. And now I know my edge is completely straight. Okay, so I've done the other side as well. So what you need to think about is when you have your curtains, if you have an existing curtain, it's great. But regardless, you could do it with an existing curtain, or you can measure down from the top where the bar needs to be, where the bar is, where it will be on that bar, all the way to where you want it to stop. So if you want it to stop at the floor, if you want to stop at the end of the window, wherever you want it to stop, or if you want it to puddle on the ground a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the measurement you want, okay, top to bottom. This is my finished measurement. 34 by 43, I think, is what my finished measurement with all the hemming. And then so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add what I need back to that for the hemming. All right, this is my existing curtain. I'm going to put it back up after the holidays. My little gray flowers. I have placemats to match this as well. I may do a placemat tutorial as well, but this is the top. And you see the top here. And the top is 4 inch hem, okay? But I also turned it under probably a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to add my 43 or 44 length, whatever I want it to finish. Okay, your total length. And then you're going to add, I'm going to add 4.5 to it. Okay, but that's not all. Down at the bottom, I have an inch hem, but it's an inch hem and then an inch turned under. So I'm going to add 4.5 for the top and then another inch, so 5.5 inches. So it would be the total length I want plus 5.5 inches. All right, now the sides are always gathered. These are curtains. You don't have to, stress about your curtains width. But say your existing curtain is 34 inches wide, then add this one is a 1/4 inch hem. So it's 1/2 inch total. So I just added an inch on to what I wanted it to be. So if I wanted 34 when I finish, I need to make it 35. Okay, one more thing. Say that your fabric is kind of messed up. I had to square off the bottom to make it right. Well, you need to add a couple inches extra so you can square it up correctly, because sometimes when people cut from the bolt at the fabric store, they'll cut diagonally, just a little askew. And so you need the extra inches to make sure you can square it up so you don't have a diagonal bottom or your curtain is too short. I mean, you can always, on this top hem, say I made a little ruffly edge at the top and I put the bar in here. A lot of curtains are like that, where you have a little ruffly edge at the top. So you could always take away some of the space if you have a smaller bar, but you want to make sure that you have what you need. So total length plus your hems, okay? Don't forget that it's usually folded under 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. So you'll need this hem plus probably 1/2 inch to be sure, and then the bottom is another inch. And if you have any questions, you just let me know. All right, so now we're going to take our 2 pieces right here. There's 2 pieces. I'm going to take them over to the ironing board, and I'm going to fold it under a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch, or you can do a 1/2 inch and tuck it back under, but I'll show you. Okay, I'm back over here at my ironing board, and make sure you are folding up and hemming the vertical sides, the sides of your curtains that go top to bottom, not the top or the bottom of your curtain, the vertical long sides. And being a kitchen window, my window is kind of square, and so I had to kind of think about which is the right side, okay? All right, so we're going to turn it over, wrong side showing, and I'm going to fold this up 1 inch. This is my sewing gauge. I love my sewing gauge. And you see that I did 1 inch. And you could do a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch and fold it twice and do a 1/2 inch. But I like, my fingers do this well. I do 1 inch and press it all the way down, and then I go back and then just tuck it under and iron that again. And that way I have a nice crisp 1 inch, and I know that I have the hem correct on that. So I'm going to do this. So as I'm going, I put this down and I press it. I usually use both hands, and I fold that up and I test it. And after I test it, I iron it. And you just keep doing that all the way down. All right, I'm going to do that first, and then I'll show you the next step. All right, I've done this all the way down. And now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to pick it up and tuck it to that crease. That crease. Tuck it in. And what you should end up with is a 1/2 inch. And then fold it under with 2 hands. And then, but as you're going, you're just going to keep going down. Fold that under, press it down. You see that? All right, so I'm going to do this for both sides, and then I'm going to stitch really close to this outer edge, not the inner one, because then you'll have this floppy edge. I'm going to stitch it all the way down, and then I'm going to do the other side. Now, this fabric is kind of like it's a darker foresty bluish green, depending on what light I'm in. It looks, on the camera, it kind of looks more bluish, like a dark, smoky, turquoisey, I'm not sure. Find the thread you like. Now, you can also pick the colors in here. You'll just be able to see them more. Any color of these will look good on there. If you're good at sewing consistent away from the edge when you're hemming all the way down, then your stitch will look really, really nice with a contrasting color that's popping. If you want it to blend in, you could get the bluish color. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to go to the sewing machine. Okay, I'm back at my sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch 1, which is the needles in the center, and a length of 3. 2.5 is what it defaults to, but you can do a 3. It's easier to get out if you mess up, and it still looks nice. So that's what I do, especially for beginners. So I'm going to roll it in. I'm going to be really close to this outer edge. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to back stitch back to the beginning in case I've missed a spot. Sometimes if you start at the very, very beginning, the needle starts pushing the fabric down into the little hole where it goes to pick up the bobbin thread, and then it'll get stuck. And so I start like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch up, and then sometimes back stitch. All right, now I did not pin this. This is really nice, 100% cotton, and it holds this crease really well. And I'm going to kind of hold it as it goes, but I'm not going to hold it too tight, because if you hold it tight, your stitches get too small. So I'm going to hold it, but I'll let the sewing machine pull it in, kind of like I'm multitasking here. So I'm going to go real close to that edge. Yeah, I'm going to show you what that looks like on the back. See that? It's a really nice little stitch there. So I'm going to go all the way down. And then I'm going to do that on the other one as well. Okay, so I have hemmed this, and I've used this pretty burgundy type thread, so it blends in with the leaves, leaves here. There's that side, and there's that side. All right, and now you do not hem the bottom yet. I go ahead and fold down the top and make the space for the rod pocket to go into. And that way, at the very end, I can see how much I need to hem it, whether I've used too much for the top or enough for the top. And that way you can see whether you want a big hem or a little hem, or if you want to cut some off. So I always do the hem last. So let's go ahead and do the top. Okay, I'm back over at my ironing board, and I'm going to show you what I did. All right, so the sides are hemmed 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And now make sure this fabric is kind of all over the place, but make sure you know your top from the bottom, and like it's not upside down. So if you want your fabric a certain way, make sure you're not creating the rod pocket on top when that's actually the bottom. So make sure you need to rotate it or anything like that. All right, so because this could be the bottom and we would need to flip it. So the very first thing I did was I folded down 1/2 inch at the top. So I folded it down and I ironed all the way. But I folded this down 4 inches, and I just kept moving it and testing it, and checking it, and moving it down, checking it, and just keep pressing it down as I checked it. Okay, and I creased it all the way down. Now, if your fabric moves on you, or if you're new and you just really don't want it to move, I suggest pinning it. Okay, this is the fabric that's going to be on the outside of the machine this way. So you want to pin it with the pins going up or sideways. Okay, so you're going to be sewing down this way with this fabric on the outside of your machine. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew really close to the edge, just like we hemmed the sides. Now we're hemming this. And since we hemmed the sides first, look at that. We have a very pretty edge already where that rod pocket is going to be. All right, but that's a giant hem, right? So what I'm going to do after that, I'm going to measure down about 1.25 inches from the top, about right here. I'm going to mark some lines, and then I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to sew on that. Because this is the pair I took down. It's all roughly from being on the rod. But see the little top part right here? Okay, this is where the rod went, and then that's that top part. We don't have this whole part for the rod to stick in. So it's going to make a little ruffle top edge. Okay, so we're going to sew close to the edge, and then we're going to sew 1.25 inches down to make that little ruffly edge. If you have a smaller rod that's going to go inside here, you could even sew down a little bit further, or you could even have a smaller than 4-inch hem at the top. It's up to you, but you do need to try it. So what you need to do is the end of the rod is always bigger. So when you fold it over, pin it and see if the rod will go inside before you sew, and then you can adjust accordingly. And I did want to show you this. This is the other curtain that I haven't ironed yet. In between video, in between pausing, I go ahead and do the other panel. Okay, so what I do is I put down my sewing gauge, and I just keep moving these down and then checking it even without ironing first. And see, that one's a little bit taller, so I'm going to move that down. And you just kind of straighten it up. And I just keep moving it down and testing it until it's all fixed up and all 4 inches. Now, if it ever hangs off the edge, we can pull it back or tuck the end in better. You can kind of manipulate that on your own. And just keep testing it till you get to the very end and make sure that you're 4 inches all the way down. And then you can iron and test again as you're ironing. Okay? All right, back at my sewing machine. Right here at the beginning, I roll my needle. I put my presser foot down first, and then I roll my needle to see if it's where I need to be. If not, you can pick up your presser foot and kind of move it around. But it is. So I'm going to go forward a couple of stitches. I'm going to back stitch back to the beginning. Again, if it doesn't move, you can pick up your presser foot and kind of move it up a little bit. And I'm just going to sew all the way down, really close to that edge, making sure everything's flat. And again, if you want to pin, and it's a good idea to pin, especially if you're a beginner, put a lot of pins going up, and then you can pin it and take out your pins as you go. Or sometimes I put them sideways and sew over them. But I'm going to do this all the way down. And then I'll show you when we get to the end, we're going to back stitch and sew off. Okay? Okay, so I'm almost at the end. Get to the end, I'm going to back stitch back on and all the way off my fabric. Needle up, presser foot up, pull it out, and cut off all your threads. Now you should be able to see your little hem in there, and if it's sticking out, you can tuck it in. You could cut the little corner off of it. Either way, but isn't that pretty? That's a nice hem. Okay, I'm going to do the other one, and then I'll show you what's next. Okay, that was my previous curtain, and I'm going to keep up and put up after the holiday, and still gathered where I had the rod in the top. And then this is the one that I have just finished doing the top on, but I have not yet done the top casing, the top stitch to make that a ruffle. But I'm going to go ahead and do 2 things at one time. So I'm going to go in there and sew it at the same time. So I'm going to measure again. Okay, so there's my top. There's my curtain. Vertically, and this is the top, all the way down is about 36.5 inches long. Okay. All right. And I'll get the other one. Here's my other curtain that I've just made. Everything's sewn except the top little casing part and the bottom hem and threads I need to cut off. So this curtain is 40 inches and the other was 36.5. So I need to fold it up. 1, 2, okay, so 1, 2, 3.5 inches. So 3.5 inches. So I can fold it up the whole 3.5 and then tuck it back in. If you want a smaller hem, you can actually cut it off. It's 36.5. You can cut it off at the 37.5 and make marks, and that way you only have a 1/2 inch hem at the bottom. But I'm just going to go ahead and fold it up to that 36.5 inch mark on both sides and make sure I measure up the 3.5 inches all the way down. make some lines. I'm going to make them on the other side because you can see it better on that. And then I'm going to fold it up, and then I'm just going to tuck it in and hem it. Back to the ironing board. All right, so I decided to do 3-inch hem instead of a 3.5-inch hem because I could use that extra 1/2 inch. It barely touched the bottom of my windowsill, so I went ahead and left that in. So I folded this up 3 inches and put my little slider on 3 inches, and I folded that up and I ironed that all the way down. Okay, then I came back and I tucked that into that crease, and then ironed it again all the way down. And if you have 3 inches, you should end up with about 1.5 inches hem, and this is on the bottom. All right, so now I'm going to sew close to this edge, back stitching and going all the way down and back stitching. All right, that's one thing. Now, the other part is I'm going to go take this back over to the table, and I'm going to measure down, and I'm probably going to do it on the outside. The spool thread always looks prettier than the bobbin thread when it's sewn, just a little bit, but I'm going to measure down. I think that was, I'm going to double check it. I think it was 1 inch down, but I'm going to do probably 1.25 inches, and then I'm going to sew all the way down, leaving a little opening for the rod pocket and the top part for the ruffle. And then once I mark that, I'm just going to back stitch and do a straight stitch on that line that I draw. Okay, back to the table. Now, I love my acrylic ruler. These little blocks are 1-inch blocks, and your lines right here, you see the bigger ones are the 1/4 inch lines. Okay, 1, 2, 3. See if you can see those. I'll point to it with this. Okay, so with this one, it would be 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and then the inch. So this right here, that first big line right there, is your 1/4 inch line. So I'm going to take that 1/4 inch line on the edge of my fabric right here, and I'm going to put that right on that end, and then I'm going to scoot this down till it's on the 1/4 inch mark, and then make sure it's all kind of set straight. Check all your lines, see if make sure it didn't move. And once you get that set up right on your 1/4 inch line, you can hold this, or get somebody to hold it, or you can hold it with your left hand if you're right-handed. I'm just doing it without. I'm going to go down through here and have my chalk line there. And then I'm going to scoot this down. Put it on that. Make sure my 1/4 inch lines, I'm looking at the line, the 1/4 inch little mark here and down here. Make sure you're all set up, and then continue your chalk line all the way down. All right, and then you can double check yourself with your sewing gauge. 1 1/4. And it should be right on it. So now I've got this nice line all the way down. So now I can just do a straight stitch from here all the way down to here. And now that's done. And then I'm going to sew the hem, and both will be finished, and then the curtains will be done. Okay, so this is the rod pocket, and then this will be the ruffle at the top. So we're going to go forward and back stitch back to the beginning, and then just keep it all flat. And follow your line that you made. Stitch right on top of it. All right, I'm going to finish both of these and do this, and then we'll hem the bottom. Okay, so now we're on the hem, and I went forward, back stitched, and then I'm going to sew close to this little edge, just keeping it straight and flat. Again, if you want to pin it, I encourage you to pin it if you don't feel comfortable with doing it this way. Just keep it flat as you're going. All right, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do at the very end. Our last stitch, get to the very end. back stitch, sew off, needle up, pressure fit up, pull it out, and cut off all your threads. And then let's talk about our numbers again. Okay, I have finished my curtains and have them hung up, so I'm going to show you in just a minute. But let's talk numbers one more time to make sure that you understand what you need. All right, so I have this existing kitchen curtain. This is a short one, so it's a great for you to see how long. It's not as overwhelming at first. But remember, curtains for a room, a window, it is exactly the same thing. These are just simple decorative curtains. It's just a square or a rectangle. So I'm going to put this at the beginning here. Okay, but in the beginning here, and it's around 36.5, 37. I went ahead and made it 37 for my finished ones. So I'm going to pull that up just a little bit. All right, so let's look at 37 inches. 37 in length. Okay, the top hem is 4 inches. All right, but it's also turned under a 1/2 inch because we don't have any raw edges here. Plus 0.5 inches. All right, the bottom hem is approximately 1 inch. So it's also turned under 1 inch. So that will be 2 inches. Now, at the very beginning, we squared off our edge, our corners to make sure it was not uneven or a diagonal. So what we're looking at here, what you need, 37 plus 4, okay, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43 and a half. But you need to give yourself another couple inches at least to make sure that you can square it off and your fabric is straight. So let's just say we need about 46 inches. You can always add the extra if it's squared off properly and you have more, you can actually make the hem a little bit bigger, and that's what I did. Okay, now let's look at this width of it. All right, here's the width of the existing curtain. Now you can also use a standard size curtain and do exactly the same thing. Online you can look at what they're offering and what the standard curtain is and just copy that and add in for the top and the bottom. So if I'm measuring across, I'm looking about 34 inches. Okay, let's look here. This is the width, 34 inches. Now for this one, I only did 1/4 inch hem on both sides, but on my new curtains, I added 1/2 inch. Okay, but whatever you have, remember it's doubled because you fold it under. So if you're going to do a 1 inch hem on both sides, you're going to need 36 inches. Now, the bolt of fabric, when you buy the bolt of fabric, and here's the fabric, okay? When you buy the bolt of fabric, the fabric is around 42 to 44 inches width. You can use that whole width. You can use the 44 inches. Cut the selvages off, which I showed you earlier. You can cut the little white edges off, okay? And then it'll come down to probably to a 42 or 43. That's not much difference. And this is the width of the curtain, and it's going to be all gathered up anyway. So just use the whole width of it. You can always cut it down if you don't want it really gathered. But so we're looking at a piece of fabric that is 46 by 36. And I always fold it over how wide I want it. So I use the whole width of the fabric and then just measure down 46 inches. But then I folded it, so I only had to cut it out once. But if you have questions and you want to do this, feel free to ask me, and you can visit me online at www.aerybeth.com. It's AERYBETH.com. Put the link in the description below. But you can contact me and say, hey, I'm looking at your video. I have a question. I'll help you. I'll answer you. And if you get stuck more than just a simple question, I'll be glad to do a virtual class with you to help you out. So I offer those as well, and we can do those through Zoom. But let's go take a look at the kitchen and the curtains. All right. And there's my finished curtains. And you see the sun's starting to set, so you can see it. The light shining through. I've got the light up here, but the light shining through as well. And so I do that to protect, so there we go. And you see the little ruffle edge at the top. All right, guys. I enjoyed teaching you today. And thanks for hanging out with me while I made my curtains. Have a wonderful day. God bless.